Hello. This is a few pages of notes I'd been writing to myself about this continuum of faith to atheism. And if you are an atheist, imagine that there's a creator, and by design he's put atheism in there as like one end of the continuum from faith to atheism. In order for you to have faith, there needs to be the opposite. So you need to be able to go into full-blown, like, I hate God, I'm an atheist mode. And by the nature of your inability to know everything all the time, all at once, you can slip into there is no God. So the kill switch is asking the question of, is there a God? Can I be curious about it? And will I relinquish my my desire to be right in order to lean into faith? And I've talked about in another video that we find ourselves in the cockpit of like a race car, and what we have access to are the buttons, the dashes and the dials that we leverage and maneuver, and then afterwards analyze what happened in the surroundings in front of us, and from that we deduce a like a mental model of reality. And from that, we then infer that is the laws of and fabric of existence, and that there is nothing in the underwiring, which is really quite bizarre, because it's taking I see, therefore I am to a new level of like willful ignorance. So, the key to driving the race car is faith. Not to have faith that one day I may have faith, but to actually have faith. Faith that there exists a creator and a spiritual dimension. The crux is that there are very few who will risk their earthly lives in order to discover what lies on the other side of believing. We practically will all understand and probably agree with the idea that there is nothing in the external world that will bring peace to our souls. Yet, many will be too reserved to take the next step into that adventure in order to find out why. And further still, there are even fewer who will investigate the ridiculousness of the idea of a self, observing a binary world using the muted lens of the five senses, and then also the analog processing system within the skull that dissects the environment into a dull and unsatisfactory framework of patterns. Reality in our one-dimensional caveman brains is an illusion. We implicitly deny our own reality then, the very existence of our own soul self, by failing to sit with the fact that our grasp on reality must anchor itself to either one of two conditions, either the world or the spirit. The world, in order to be effectively navigated, requires hormones as guiding principles. Here, one runs on autopilot, and the brain's mechanical pattern recognition device creates a somewhat sophisticated map of the laws of the world. So reality is entirely specific to the perceiver, when the laws of existence are rooted in the one-dimensional world and the very specific experiences that person has endured throughout their lifetime. So worldly reality is a series of emotional muscles, each with varying strengths, that release chemicals in varying proportions dependent on how the body has reacted to its environment. The more alien the stimulus received, the more intense the reaction of the updating of that system. We experience hormones, then are immediately hijacked by them, and then drip by drip lose our sense of self to them. Because we have no faith, we have no connection, and so we lay claim to all our hormones, good or bad. Here we have to confront our own ridiculousness. Meanwhile, if we anchor ourselves to a system of beliefs in a spiritual reality, it becomes the very practice of observing the subtleties of the feelings of intimations of the heart, to pay attention and see if there is, in fact, a third eye. It requires a potential believer to ask abstract and often unanswerable questions about the nature of their ability to contemplate reality. So here it helps to consider the very essence of emotions and their utterly lucid structure. When we sit in our emotions and also don't drown them in arbitrary and unuseful language or block or project them, we see how they rise and flow in the way that water moves over the top of the ocean. They simply have no beginning and no end, which therefore already contradicts our worldly reality perspective of life, where everything has been segmented into dull logical patterns of logic and understanding. We see that this is the mental health sector, where we have decimated human connection into distinguishable characteristics and then labelled everyone else as a calculated narcissist and or sociopath. So, atheism is perhaps a feature, not a bug, of the system designed by the Creator. Every system of energy exists on a continuum. Every single thing we ever interact with is on a continuum. And faith is no different. At one extreme, one will observe in the earthly reality that a man of faith is one who strolls around uttering to himself stupidly and dwindling his own possessions and desires, worshipping a seemingly invisible entity. He appears out of place and delusional, and yet there is something in the way he moves and speaks that sparks profound curiosity. Meanwhile, to someone anchored within that spiritual reality, an individual who has his desires focused on in the worldly reality, where he gratifies his sensory organs, appears lost. He is guided by a desire to be impulsive and correct, and he fears not any rebuke. For if there was not such capacity to turn so aggressively away from God, there would not be such capacity to turn towards him. One's lifestyle, therefore, is a reflection of their faith, their internal world. The continuum of atheism to faith exists in parallel to the continuum of worldly reality to spiritual reality. So, one cannot be both in true faith and also guided by their hormones. The measure of faith is, therefore, measured by the heart only. And this is something entirely individualistic and not perceived through any one of the five senses. And this is evident through the consistent and perseverant state of one's godly dogmatism. We are, therefore, fumbling around in the dark all the time and always. So I'll wrap up with this. It wasn't part of the same essay, but consciousness is symbiotic with connection. We are here to connect with one another through love alone. Love is sacrifice. It is bold and it is raw. I'm not sure I fully understand or feel it in a sense of intimacy, but I do know what it is not. This is, I don't know. I hope this makes sense.